The Haunted Photograph. Part 1. The Unveiling. It was a stormy night when Julia stumbled upon a mysterious photograph hidden in her deceased grandmother's attic. The attic, cluttered with forgotten relics and dusty mementos, had always held an air of mystery, but this photograph seemed different. As Julia brushed the dust off the frame, an eerie feeling crept over her. The image was a black and white picture of a tranquil garden, with a solitary figure standing in the distance. Curiosity consumed Julia as she inspected the photograph. The figure's features were indistinct, but she could make out the outline of a woman's silhouette. Unsettled, she decided to investigate further. With each gust of wind against the old window panes, she became increasingly convinced that the ghostly figure in the photograph was real. Part 2. The Forgotten Secret. Determined to unravel the mystery, Julia sought help from a local historian, Mr. Phillips. They met in his study, a room filled with antique books and captivating artifacts. Mr. Phillips listened attentively as Julia shared her discovery, his eyes glinting with curiosity. There was once a great manor house that stood in the very garden captured in this photograph, Mr. Phillips revealed. It belonged to a wealthy family, the Harringtons. Legend has it that Mrs. Harrington disappeared under mysterious circumstances, leaving her spirit forever trapped within the walls of the manor. Julia shuddered at the thought. Is there any way to free her spirit? Mr. Phillips, stroking his silver beard, said, some believe her spirit can only be freed once the truth of her disappearance is unearthed. Armed with this information, Julia knew she had to confront the haunted photograph and find the truth. Part 3. The Ghostly Encounter. That night, Julia stood in the garden of the long-abandoned manor. The moonlight cast eerie shadows, creating an otherworldly aura. Clutching the photograph in her trembling hands, she softly whispered Mrs. Harrington's name, hoping to connect with the trapped spirit. Suddenly, a gust of wind whistled through the garden. Julia's eyes widened as the figure from the photograph materialized before her. Mrs. Harrington's ghostly image seemed trapped in a perpetual state of sorrow. Who are you? Julia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The spirit's ethereal voice emanated. I am Elizabeth Harrington. I seek the truth that will set me free. Julia found herself compelled to help the restless spirit. She decided to delve into the past, determined to uncover the buried secrets that plagued Mrs. Harrington's existence. Part 4. Unearthing the Secrets. Julia embarked on a quest that took her deep into the archives of the local newspaper, where she uncovered articles from the time of Mrs. Harrington's disappearance. The story spoke of a woman driven to madness by her husband's infidelity. It was rumored that she had taken her own life, but there was no concrete evidence to support that claim. Driven by an unyielding determination, Julia went to the local library, searching through aged books about the history of the Harrington family. In an unassuming leather-bound diary, she stumbled upon a passage written by Mrs. Harrington herself. It revealed a deeply troubled woman, tormented by her husband's affair and her inability to conceive a child. With the truth within her grasp, Julia gathered Mrs. Harrington's spirit once more at the abandoned manor, the photograph serving as their link. Part 5. A Revelation. In the moonlit garden, Julia stood face to face with the forlorn spirit. She recounted the findings from her research, the truth laid bare. Tears welled in Mrs. Harrington's eyes, her anguish palpable. Thank you for finding my voice, she whispered, her ethereal form beginning to dissipate. May this garden find peace at last. In that moment, Julia felt a gentle breeze sweep through the garden, as if the spirits of the past were finally sated. The photograph, no longer haunted, held only the captured memory of a forgotten garden. Part 6. Closure. In the days that followed, the abandoned manor underwent a transformation. The town rallied together to restore the garden to its former glory, creating a beautiful memorial to Mrs. Harrington. Julia, now a part of the manor's history, couldn't help but feel a sense of closure within her own heart. Years later, Julia visited the garden once more, now thriving with life. As she admired the flowers dancing in the wind, a voice seemed to whisper in her ear, "Thank you, Julia." She smiled, knowing that Mrs. Harrington's spirit had finally found its peace. The haunted photograph had led Julia on a journey of discovery, not only unraveling a mystery, but also uncovering the power of compassion and redemption. From that day forward, Julia made it her mission to help spirits find their truths, one haunting at a time.